All right. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Headwaters Science Center live stream. We got a little bit of noise in the background. There's a birthday party here. But today we have a special guest for the live stream. We're going to be going over something a little bit different than we normally do. Sarah, you can feel free to come on up. So today we're going to be talking about scientific art and how art is used in science and sort of how it's applied in that way. So,
yeah, hi. Thanks for tuning into this live stream. My name is Sarah Fires. I am 1 year out of my bachelor's degree for environmental education and interpretation out of Humboldt State University in Northern California. I'm going to give you a roughly 20-minute talk today. And before we start, I just want to give you a couple of really quick definitions. So, as Carl had mentioned, today we're going to be talking about science and art. So, Merriam-Webster defines science as such knowledge concerned with physical world and its phenomena, and defines art as the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the production of aesthetic objects. And so growing up, I really liked science and art, and for a long time, I practiced both in various ways. I wasn't sure exactly where those two subjects met though, but as my passions grew, those around me that supported me were telling me that I should figure out a way to combine both of those subjects. And for a long time, I was kind of at a loss as to what a viable way to do that would be, but slowly and quietly, I began to develop my own style and my own specific tastes and interests. And I found that naturally, these disciplines find their way back to each other in many different forms. I found that there are some wonderful ways that art enhances sciences. Now, some of our greatest artistic works and scientific findings are not contemporary, as in they haven't happened recently. They can be older than you and I, and some of them are older than our longest established museums and institutions. And one way that we combat the loss of scientific specimens through time is through preservation. And a few examples of preservation are those like fossils and artifacts. So imprints of some different critters and plants, and also beads and pottery and tools left by humans from many years ago have been preserved through time by ideal conditions. A lot of these fossils are millions of years old, such as this, I believe, mastodon tibia right here is an actual bone, millions of years old. Beads and pottery and tools that I had mentioned left by humans, early humans, are tens of thousands of years old. And so it's pretty amazing that they can be preserved in such a way, in such perfect condition as well. And it takes skills in art to uncover, clean, and then preserve these works that were left behind. Another example of preservation is through taxidermy and projects like bug pitting. And now, taxidermy, when we think of taxidermy, you got some like really cool specimens such as this pintail right here. And then there's also older examples like in the Victorian era when you think about those kind of dollhouse settings, the mice at school. So taxidermy has gone through many different iterations throughout the years. The oldest taxidermy that we've found has been dated back to ancient Egyptians, unsurprisingly. But back then, taxidermy wasn't a practice to preserve scientific evidence, but more so to pay homage to the pharaohs that, had those animals, so they preserved them with their pharaohs. But over time, as technology developed and we found better ways to preserve these things, more lifelike mounts came about, and birds are actually of the first mounts that we have that are kind of in a more lifelike position, such as this duck, and also rabbit, snake, and turtle. Okay. Yeah, so we got this turtle guy right here. And yeah, taxidermy is very much a living art form. It's very organic and it definitely goes through some changes. And, as time goes on, it can naturally degrade if it's not preserved properly. And so that's a part of where the art aspect comes into preservation. Skillfully applying these means to preserve something organic and something that ultimately is meant to decay into something that can last centuries. So it's pretty amazing. It's gone through different iterations, like I said, and definitely throughout the Victorian era became a big status piece for even just wealthier people showing how much they know and where they've been, to objects such as fossils that they might keep in their guest room or taxidermy by the front door. So one example is preservation, and when we don't have the real deal, it makes sense to represent it. And some ways that we do that are through scientific illustration, which is a visual art that we use to describe the natural world. And something that I would argue is maybe some of the oldest scientific illustration is some cave art that we found in Europe, Africa, and Asia that dates back to over 50,000 years ago. And it shows depictions of animals that we were hunting at the time. Scientific illustration is found throughout modern field guides and textbooks, and I don't know if you can like zoom in on that very far.
Yep.
Yeah. So we got some different trees through here. I also have my well-loved birds of North America, all with full color illustrations. And the reason that this is really important and really cool that we use it in textbooks and field guides is because the artists have a way of manipulating the subject to show exactly what they want to show. And that's something that often we can't find simply through taking a photo. And this is also something near and dear to my heart because I myself have been breaching into the wonderful world of scientific illustration. So I'll show you a few pieces today. Got a red-tailed hawk and a great gray owl at the bottom. We have an eastern screech owl and a bald eagle over here. And my most recent piece, I just finished this the other day. We have a tree swallow up top next to a violet green swallow down at the bottom. And these are birds that I often get confused as a bird watcher. And so, like I said, it's really important that we can accurately delineate these birds and other animals and plants from each other for the sake of identifying and sharing with others so that they know what they're looking at. So another example of representation is through models. And models trace back to the development of the scientific method, and it helps with even more than just one step. We have digital and physical models to replicate observations and also to essentially replicate things that we don't have, the real deal in front of us, such as this, what was this, a Spinosaurus?
Yeah.
Such as the Spinosaurus model, which I believe has shown up in previous live streams, but and this really cool skull of
Great.
Huh?
Great.
Yeah, okay.
It's an old one.
Yeah, this isn't quite my area of expertise, but this model is super, super important for showing, giving an idea of what the real thing was like and how this relates to us or to other concepts.
Also how it was found. The darker brown areas are actually the replicated parts, the rest is filled.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's really neat. Yeah, so a lot of different ways that we can have models, and there's a lot of different ways that models help inform us for different applications that we use them in. And yeah, some figurines that we have found, some different models of humanoid sculptures that we've found, again, are 10,000s of years old, and often have like exaggerated forms in some cases showing the differences between the sexes or showing concepts such as childbirth or hunting. So that's really, really important to inform us in our understanding of, past societies as well as what was going on at the time. So at the end of the day, some concepts are too numerous or too abstract to really represent, so it's up to interpreters to demystify those concepts. And through interpretation and education, that goes back through oral tradition since humans learned how to speak. And that's kind of a debated timeline for when that happened, but some scientists are estimating up to 2 million years ago we began to talk to each other. And at that point, we started to communicate concepts to each other regarding, different plans for hunting or community building. And with that, we spread education down, to generations below us into our communities around us. So, speaking contemporarily of you and me, I want you to take a second and think about the best teacher you've ever had. Think about the traits that come to mind when you think back to, maybe you're still in school, what really brought you into that classroom, what really made you enjoy it. And now take a second to think about maybe a teacher that wasn't so great, somebody that, you kind of dreaded going to their class every day, and think about kind of why that was. And I know for me, a lot of those differences were in the passion of the subject matter that they were teaching. It's easier to have a approachable and engaging teacher that's really passionate about what they're talking about versus somebody that's just there maybe for the paycheck or just there because, it's something that maybe they're passionate about teaching, just maybe not about that subject matter. But it really shows through in the quality of that education. And for all of those aspects that it takes to create a good teacher or an interpreter, you really need to consider that as a bit of an art form because it's really a balancing act, finding exactly what you're interested in teaching, finding ways to apply that, and finding ways to engage your students in that and bring people into the conversation. It's definitely not an easy task, and it can be quite challenging at times. So I have a lot of respect for the educators around me, and truly, it's definitely an art form that isn't quite conventional when you think of it. And interp is a little bit easier. If things aren't going as well, you can just point at a bird and distract them for a little bit, but in the end, a program is really what you make of it. And if you can combine in, artistic skill and an understanding of both the subject matter and the community that you're speaking to, really ups the program so much more. It really enhances it. So you still may be thinking that art and science are separate subjects, like they don't really quite come together. You might have some things that inform each other, but really where's the intersection? And you might be thinking, like, why does this all even matter? And it matters because without it, science would really be monotonous. It would be a lot of line graphs, a lot of data analysis, which is all super, super important. Don't get me wrong, but it makes it harder for the general public to access that if it's something that they can't, auditorily or visually digest easily. And to deny the connection between the two subject matters is to deny the innate beauty found in nature. Something as simple as appreciating the feathers on this duck, like the amazing camouflage that it has, on its back, or the pores within this bone. There's so much complexity in nature and so much complexity in science that art helps do justice to communicate that to a general audience. And it's pretty important when you consider it together. But historically, through preservation, representation, and interpretation, we definitely find that art enhances science, through forms such as taxidermy and bug pinning, through fossil collection, through illustration and models. A few examples that we have right here. None of this would be possible if we didn't combine art into it. So, yeah, and I have a few examples, or I guess not examples, but groups groups, people that have inspired me in the past that have found the way to marry these two concepts together. Should I write them on the board? Yeah, okay. So, one group that really helped me when I was getting into taxidermy, which I was hoping to have a piece here today to show you, but these are fantastic pieces as well. But one show on YouTube that really helped me while I was getting into it is called The Brain Scoop. Which has been ended for the last 2 years, but still a lot of really cool information. It's a YouTube channel. Do a great job at bringing together biology and the arts. It's very cool. I definitely recommend checking them out. Let's see.
Blue's a little bit faint.
Yeah. There we go. Gotham Taxidermy, which is on Instagram, as well as, you know, other places. If you look it up, you'll find them. Really cool female taxidermist out of New York. Her name is Divya Anantharman. Very inspirational person. Again, helped me while I was getting into taxidermy and bringing together art and sciences. It's really inspiring to see females in, I mean, both subjects, but the STEM is very important. Let me make sure I'm spelling this right. Kurz Gazette. Again, another YouTube channel. They run the In a Nutshell program on YouTube. Very cool for demystifying really big concepts and also really small concepts that maybe you haven't quite thought about. But really cool, you know, quick 5 to 10 minute videos explaining, again, big concepts that maybe you just want to know a little bit more about. Definitely recommend checking them out. Yeah, and there's really a bunch of different people that are finding ways to merge these two subjects together. And if I could give any advice to anybody wondering how to actually get into it, just do what feels right. It might not come easily, but if you do what feels right, it will come naturally. And just find something that you enjoy. And if you're passionate about both, they'll find a way to come together because art intrinsically enhances sciences. So thanks for sitting in on this live stream today. Yeah, Carl, if you have any questions or if anybody had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No questions on there. I want to just like for uses of art, you mentioned like field guides, education, publicity. Like one of the things that came to mind for me was like early dinosaur research. They would often make these like life-size models of the animal. I think when we were kids, like a lot of museums would get those life-size animatronic dinosaurs, which are a huge artistic like undertaking to make. But it's a great way to help people visualize these things. Because otherwise, like you said, it's a bit abstract and a bit tough to make it something tangible for people.
Yeah.
And like that's something that like here, pretty much every exhibit is scientific art to some degree. It's a great way to get people actually involved.
Yeah, no, it really is. And that's something to say, like, you know, specifically talking about dinosaurs. Like, this model is a really cool model, and it does a great job at showing, you know, the proportions of this dinosaur and set up next to other animals or plants at the time that are in proportion to it. You get a pretty good idea of what was going on, but also for those life-size animatronic things that you see, it's really great to conceptualize that with you in the setting, even if realistically you wouldn't have been there in person. It just brings it so much more, like, it makes it more relatable. And yeah, getting into the nitty-gritty about that, I mean, the technology that goes into that, the skill that goes into like everything around that, creating the materials, creating the form that it sits on. yeah, there's a lot of artistic skill that goes in behind that, and it's a really cool project, regardless of where it's at.
Also, I'm like sticking to it. I think a lot of us as kids were told like, yeah, art doesn't pay the bills, and also maybe it's like you got to pick one. I do like the fact that you don't have to pick one; you can do both.
Yeah.
I will make the joke is we were told art doesn't pay the bills. We weren't told that much about how much science can do that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's really cool, especially with the few that I cited. And again, there's a lot more if you just do some, general research and when you look at related videos to things like that, you'll find a lot of people that kind of refused to subscribe to the idea that, as an artist, you can't be truly successful. And really chasing after their passions and making it work through like really publicly appreciating both the science and the art behind it. So yeah, I think it also just kind of goes back to what your personal definition of successful is at this point. And I think that's something that we've been challenging a lot more in recent years.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
If anyone online has any questions, now's the time to ask them. Anything else, or you think you're all good?
Yeah, no, I think that this was great. I've been a little bit out of practice for my presentation, so thank you all for sitting through this with me. It's good to be back. And yeah, this was a really fun talk to have. I had a lot of fun coming up with this, so thanks again for viewing this.
And for everyone, Headwater Science Center, we are open 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, we are open 9:30 to 5. Sunday, we're open 1 to 5. Thankfully it's starting to get warmer out, so hopefully the weather gets a bit nicer. Enjoy the good weather while it lasts, because we're